Okay, we're going to look at contact now. One thing I want to say first of all about contact is a group of young people recently put a paper together that's been published on Research in Practice, and basically they're talking about what to do with us, what not to do with us, and one of the things they say is please stop using words like contact. Can't you just call it family time, or can't you just say I'm off to see my mum? So what they're saying is contact is a very clinical word, so please don't use it around them. However, it will still be referred to as contact by social workers and other professionals that you come across. And what do we mean by contact? We mean children seeing those people, such as parents that they're no longer allowed to live with or able to live with, or who they're not coming into regular contact with. So the local authority has a responsibility to set out contact arrangements for children when they are looked after. Legal requirements state that children and young people are encouraged to maintain and develop family contacts and friendships as set out in their care plan or fostering agreement. And this means that anyone who is important to the child and is considered to be a positive influence or role model should be or could be allowed to have contact with the child or young person. And when I mixed my words up then and said should, it's very important that I'm not saying should, because this depends on a lot of things. So it's about could be. So who decides, who makes decisions around contact? I've got on there the social worker, the child's family, sometimes the court. And I made this list in the wrong order on purpose because I try and encourage people to pull me up on something that's wrong with this list. You might have noticed, but the child should be at the top of this list. We should be speaking to the child. So going back years and years in social work, I remember children would be brought into care and a social worker would say, right, I've organised contact on this day and this day with mum. Dad's seeing them on this day, grandma's seeing them then, this person's seeing them then, boom, off we go. It shouldn't be like that. Our first port of call should be having a conversation with the child and saying, who do you want to see? Who do you want to speak to? And who do you not want to see? It should absolutely first start with the child. Now, sometimes children will say they want to see people where it's not safe. Children will ask for various forms of contact that are not safe. So social workers can override that if they feel it's not safe, but it's important that we get the child's wishes to start with. Equally, a child could say, I want to see a parent. Social worker could say that's okay, but the parent might say, I don't want to see them. So we need to think about who's important to this child, what they're saying they want, and formulate a plan from there. The decisions around contact should be made primarily, like I said, on the wishes and feelings of the child, and the safety and welfare of the child. And sometimes this overrides this. Why is contact there? It's about promoting children's immediate needs and their long-term needs. Contact has to be promoting need and creating positivity. If contact is harmful, if contact is distressing, then this is something that needs reviewing. Contact shouldn't go ahead when it's causing massive distress to a child just because the parent might complain. If a child doesn't want to see their parent, then we really need to listen to them. Contact should be about promoting identity, security and self-esteem. It should be about creating opportunities for growth, and we should be using contact to promote these 6 outcomes. So some of you might have children who have supervised contact. Supervised contact takes place when it's felt that there might be concerns about leaving children with parents or others on their own. Those concerns could be around violent behaviour, they could be around parents whispering to children and asking them to keep secrets, could be anything. But it's felt that it's not safe to leave children on their own with parents. Supervised contact might take place when observations need to be undertaken. So social workers who are completing assessments for court, things like that, they might need to be able to observe this relationship, and so they might supervise the contact. And if there's a likelihood that parents might be difficult within the contact, then it would be supervised as well. So there's different types of contact that children can have. Face-to-face is the most obvious one that springs to mind. But if that's not possible, children can still phone, email. I mean, now we have FaceTime, write letters, share photos. And I've put here, what about family members in prison? So sometimes when a child when a child's family member goes into prison, contact can stop. But it shouldn't. Children can visit prison for contact with family members, but for sometimes that's just not safe and not the right thing to do. But there's still all these other ways that they can stay in touch. They can write letters, they can send pictures and things like that. Any of you who are caring for a child who has a parent or a close relative in prison, we do offer a training course called Hidden Sentence. And this training course takes place in Hull Prison, and it's all about how we can support those families where someone is in prison and they have children, and what we can do to support that and from both sides. And prison officers attend the training, foster carers, Hull City Council staff do as well, and it's a really good course and can be really helpful, especially if you've got a child who's got someone in prison. So who's involved in the contact? The child, obviously, the parents, the foster carers. So you as the foster carer are a vital part of contact, preparing children, helping them through contact, and you might supervise the contact yourself. Social workers are involved, relatives, so you know, it might not just be about parents, there might be other grandparents, aunties, uncles, friends. We need to remember that sometimes when children become looked after, they move areas, and they might still have friends that they want to see, and we need to think about how we can make that happen. And contact officers. So sometimes when contact has to be supervised and there is nobody that the child knows who's suitable to supervise that contact, then we have a contact team whereby a contact officer who's a designated person will facilitate and supervise that contact. This is one of those slides that might be a bit small for you to read here, but you've got your slides in front of you. Any child who has contact in place or a contact arrangement, you should have been involved, you the foster carer, should have been involved in a contact arrangement meeting. Now these can be a standalone meeting, but generally it forms part of the planning meeting. So if a child's already in your care, you should have had a planning meeting, and this all should be discussed within the planning meeting. So within the contact arrangements, you should be looking at times and frequency of contact. So when does it take place, how often, where is it taking place, how long do we wait if the person doesn't attend. So for some children it can be really difficult to just sit and wait for somebody not knowing if they're coming. Who's providing the transport? And these might seem like silly things to cover, but I've known a foster carer before who was sat at home waiting for a contact officer to collect the child. The contact officer was waiting at the centre, waiting for the foster carer to transport the child, and they actually hadn't had that conversation. So we need to clarify who's doing the transporting. Financial requirements or arrangements for parents, so sometimes parents might need help with bus tickets, etc. Provisions, so who's expected to provide the food? If contact takes place over tea time or dinner time or whatever, who is it that's sending the food, who's sending nappies, all those kind of things. Any support that parents need during contact, i.e. do they know how to change a nappy, for example? Are they going to need help picking the child up? All sorts of things. What do we do if an issue arises? So what is expected of the people involved if any issues arise? What is your role in supporting the contact? What is your part to play? And are you going to be able to claim any travel costs if you're supervising the contact and it's a day out, who's funding the day out, those kind of things, and what are you expected to record. Okay, so all these things should be discussed so you know as the foster carer exactly what's expected of you. And remember, I've said earlier in the day that we need to make sure that you as the foster carer are protected. So this is very much about protection as well. So you need to be clear on what's expected. So what we do with contact is we work on a best case scenario, and we should always be striving to be as high up this list as possible. So the best case scenario for our children is to have unsupervised contact. So where a child can just go off and say, I'm off to see my mum, I'm off to see my dad, I'm off to see auntie so-and-so, I'll be back by 7, see you later. And off they go, and they can see them. There might be specific times, it might be as and when, but it's unsupervised, it's natural, it's normal, and it's comfortable. That's the best thing for our children. For all sorts of reasons, that might not be able to happen. So then the next best thing that we would want for them is that it's supervised by you in your home. The reason for that is we want you to be their trusted person, their safe person, and we want your home to be their home, their safe place. So what we're saying is, under number 2, they're having contact in their safe place with their safe person. For all sorts of reasons, that might not be able to happen. It might not be okay for it to happen in your home. You might have your own children, there might not be space, you might not want family to know where you live, for all sorts of reasons. So then we would say that the next best thing is that it's supervised by you outside of your home. So although they're not in their safe place, they've got their safe person. Again, all sorts of reasons why it's not safe to be outside, just doing activities and things. So then we would say number 4, we would want you to supervise it in a contact centre. So in one of our contact centres, which isn't the best environment for contact, but they've still got you, their safe person. So again, all sorts of reasons why that might not be able to happen. You might not be comfortable supervising contact from the beginning, it might be too much, or we might not deem it safe. So the next best thing is that a contact officer is supervising the contact, and they're doing that either in your home, in the child's safe place, or out on an activity. The last thing we want for our children is for their contact to be supervised by a contact officer in a contact centre. It feels very unnatural. You're in a room with a box of toys, they haven't got their safe person, they haven't got their safe place, and this is the last case scenario that we should be looking at. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, there's lots of children with this arrangement for very good reasons, but what we want to do is try and strive for the best possible. What I've found in the past is sometimes we might start down here but climb up the list. And I've known children who've started out with contact being supervised in a contact centre, and they've ended up where their parents come to the foster carer's home and it's supervised by the foster carer, and it's really nice and it's lovely for the child. So where we start doesn't have to be where we stay. Okay, so think about where you are, and think about where you might be able to get to, and don't feel like just because something's been put in place you have to stay there. So to promote positive contact, if you are involved in supervising the contact, you need to make sure that you are prepared, that you've had that agreement meeting, you know what's expected of you, and you know where you're going and what to do. You need to make sure that you've got support, okay? That if you need to, you've got someone you can call to discuss it afterwards, and if things are starting to feel unsafe, that you've got somebody you can go to and say, this isn't feeling great anymore. That you're observing, that you were able to observe and you know what you're supposed to be observing, that you can maintain it. So if you're saying, yes, I can supervise this contact, that you can keep that going, because change can be difficult for children. Obviously, if a safety issue arises, then that takes precedence. and make sure you know what you're expected to record and evaluate. So if you are supervising the contact, you will be expected to record what's happened, what you've seen. Again, in the contact arrangement meeting, that needs to be laid out and made clear. But you need to be very careful when making records about what is fact, what is opinion, and what is professional judgment. So for example, if you get your slide out, so this might be a bit small, if we look at this list then, number 1, there are inadequate play and stimulation opportunities available. Do we think that's a fact, a professional judgment, or an opinion? Okay, I would say it can't be a fact because this is subjective. Okay, so what one person deems to be inadequate, another person might say, well no, it's all right actually. Number 2, the bruise and swelling are consistent with hitting his head on the door. What do we think? Okay, well I would say that cannot be a fact. If you were saying it, it would be an opinion. If we had a doctor saying it, it would probably be a professional judgment. Number 3, this is the first incident of abuse to the child. What do we think? Now that can be a tricky one. If I said to you, this is the first incident of abuse to the child that's been recorded, that might be a fact. But if it's just hearsay, we cannot claim it to be a fact. Number 4, Mrs. Green is good at keeping her flat tidy. Again, that's opinion, because what is tidy? We all have different standards. My standards have plummeted since I became a mum. I used to have a lovely clean and tidy house. Now it's, well please don't come round. But what one person deems as tidy is not the same as what another person would say is tidy. So again, that would be an opinion. Number 5, children who were abused usually become abusers. Okay, I would say again, we can't claim that to be a fact. What we might be able to say at some point is statistics show this is most likely, but again, we can't claim that to be a fact. Number 6, the child said his dad hit him. Okay, I would say that is a fact. If a child has said to you that their dad hit them, then for you to repeat that is a fact. You're not saying that dad hit him, you're saying that's what the child said. I saw Peter playing with his toys when I last visited. Fact. Okay, so when we're making recordings, if something is our opinion, we need to make sure that we're saying, in my opinion. So, for example, you might record after contact, in my opinion, there was no emotional warmth from mum. In my opinion, dad didn't seem pleased to see the children. Okay, in my opinion, the children adored contact. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're stating that it is our opinion. If we are quoting a child, we need to make sure that if we are directly quoting them, we can remember exactly what they said. So if I'm saying the child said, I need to make sure I can remember it word for word. Otherwise, I need to put something along the lines of, the child said something like, or parts that I remember are. Okay, but please don't quote a child if you can't remember exactly what they said.